Tama Bina Kedoyalu Jagat Samsare.
Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Daya Karamore Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare.
Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Daya Karamore Tama Bina Ke Dayalu Jagat Samsare.
Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Daya Karamore Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare.
Atita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Behara.
Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Behara.
Atita Bhavana Hetu Tava Avatara Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Behara.
Patita Pavana Hetu Tava Avatar Mosama Patita Prabhu Napai Behara.
Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Mala Kana Koro Ami Koro Dukhi.
Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bala Kana Karo Ami Boro Dukhi.
Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bala Kana Koro Ami Boro Dukhi.
Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi Kripa Bala Kana Karo Ami Boro Dukhi.
Maya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Ole Pai Chaitanya Nitai.
Jaya Karo Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bole Bai Chaitanya Nitai.
Jaya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai.
Jaya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai.
Jaya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai.
Jaya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripa Bole Pai Chaitanya Nitai.
Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Vata Duga Shiva Prabhu Lokanath
Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Vata Duga Shri Jiva Prabhu Lokanath
Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Vata Duga Shiva Prabhu Lokanath
Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha Vata Duga Shri Jiva Prabhu Lokanath
Daya Koro Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangamage Narotamodasa
Asasiyacharya Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangamade Narottama Das
Daya Koro Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa Ramachandra Sangamage Narotamodasa
Daya Karo Sriyacharya Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangamade Narottama Das
Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Kamadina Kedoyalu Jagat Samsare
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More Kamabina Ke Dayalu Jagata Samsare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa Parvadakacharya, Asadhara Sadushi, Shriman.
Already done.
His Divine Grace, Lacy, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Śrila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanande, Haribo,
Hari.
Slava Okuplani Bhaktama, Slava Shiguru, Shigarangi. Om Vishnu Pradaya Krishna Prastavute, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane, Namaste, Saraswande, Corner Chance, Pasikatya Days, Tarna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Ram.
So we have today's little shorter session of questions and answers because 6 o'clock Gaura Arati will start, 6 to 7, then 7 o'clock we'll have this village fest program with local residents. And there are a lot of questions, so I don't think we'll be able to go through all of them, but then maybe we can continue tomorrow. Yeah. So, why in whole of Caitanya Caritamrta there is not even one verse with Hare Krishna Maha-mantra? Moreover, in number of verses, Lord Chaitanya instructs those that he proceeded to to chant Hari Hari. Could you please illuminate on this?
That's for Prahlada. It says for Prahladananda Maharaja.
For you or Prahladananda Maharaja?
I probably don't have such a good answer.
I have so many in my name.
Yes, Maharaj.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, Krishna's name is mentioned throughout the Caitanya Caritamrta, but specifically Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam. I think that may be quoted also. And of course, Caitanya Maharaj was chanting that, what was that? Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Hey. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava. Pahimam, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. So Caitanya Mahaprabhu is always chanting Krishna's name. As far as specifically the Maha-mantra, I have no idea why it's not mentioned. If I would have written the Caitanya Caritamrta, I probably would have mentioned it. But Krishnadas Kaviraj, somehow or another, you would have to ask him why he didn't mention the Hare Krishna mantra. Although Prabhupada in his purports, of course, mentions it. But the important thing is that, as it says, Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purno Shuddho Nitibhukto Binatvam Nama Namino. That Krishna and his name are non-different. And Caitanya Caritamrta is specifically meant so that we can learn how to chant Hare Krishna with the same mood and feelings of separation as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. So exactly how they were chanting Hare Krishna may not be so important as the fact that they were chanting Hare Krishna. And they were doing it in feelings of separation. Now, where the Hare Krishna mantra specifically, was introduced into our sampradaya, that I don't know. We know that the Sankhya Purvaka Namagana Natibi Kalava Sanikrito Nidrahare Viharakari Nijito Sankyan Kepuna Seto Radha Krishna Gunasmitera Madhurima Nandena Samohito Bande Rupa Sanatano Rajguyago Shi Jiva Gopalago. So we know that the 6 Goswamis, they were chanting japa. Of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting japa too. And I assume they were chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, although I can't say for sure that that's what they were chanting on their japa beads. But chanting japa has been part of our disciple succession. Exactly what mantra they were chanting, like for instance in the Śrimad Bhagavatam, Gop Kumar was chanting the Gopal mantra, which was one of our Gayatri mantras. He wasn't chanting Hare Krishna on his beads, and yet he reached Kaloka Vrindavan. So I think the important thing is that we chant Hare Krishna, the names of Krishna, and that's given to us by our Guru in disciple succession. And we learn the different aspects of the mantra, especially how to properly chant the mantra. And we've been instructed by Caitanya Mahaprabhu how to chant our mantras with the same spirit of Vipalamba Seva, feeling separated from Radha and Krishna and their associates in Vrindavan. More than that, I don't really know. I have no idea.
In the search in CC, Lord Chaitanya asked Vaninath, what does Vaninath doing? And he said instead chanting Hare Krishna. So there is.
Not the full mantras and the full. The full mantra is spoken, instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu twice in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavatam, which of course was written before Caitanya Caritamrta. Specifically and famously, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhu kahe kahilam e Maha-mantra, iha japa gya shabe kare nibandha. Yaha hoite sarva siddhi hoibe shobha sarva kon kahanam vidhi nahiya. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, what I said is the Maha-mantra. And everyone should chant this nirbandha. The word nirbandha is a iha japa. Everyone should chant this japa. Nirbandha. The word nirbandha is an unusual word. Sometimes it's taken to mean a fixed number of times, and sometimes it's taken to mean, or can also mean following rules and regulations. By this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone can achieve all success. Śrila Prabhupada sometimes quotes this in his purports and his lectures. Everyone should chant. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said everyone should chant this all the time, and there's no other rule beyond this. We also have in Rupa Goswami's writings describing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, describes Hari Krishneti Uchai, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was chanting, counting Hare Krishna iti, that means Hare Krishna, etc. So that he chanted the Hare Krishna mantra is there, and he did chant many other things. We find in Caitanya Caritamrta that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came back from Gaya and he started his Sankirtan movement in Navadvip, specifically it stated that he chanted Hare Nama Krishna Yadavai Namaha Gopal Govinda Ram Srimadhu Sudan. Doesn't specifically mention the Hare Krishna mantra. Exactly why it's not in Caitanya Caritamrta, I don't know. Please send me an email and I'll look into it further. It's one of those millions of things which can be researched and looked into further. My thought, another important thing is that the Acharyas, shortly after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they have written specifically commentaries on the Hare Krishna mantra, what exactly it means. Jiva Goswami, I believe, Gopal Guru Goswami, and later Bhaktivinoda Thakur, what we are to meditate on as we chant each word of the Hare Krishna mantra. One thought that I have is that maybe it's just taken for granted. It's just everyone, it's right there in Chaitanya Bhagavatam, everyone's doing it, and it's taken for granted. Huh?
They were quoting
There it is.
Iti Sorashakam Nam Nam Kali Kalmasha. Yeah, that's there. But I don't. Was that quoted in Chaitanya Bhagavatam? I don't. As far as I know, not. But yeah, most editions of the Kali Santaran Upanishad have that with Hare Rama first, incidentally. Although apparently, according to Satyaraj, who's done lots of research on all kinds of different things. There is an old manuscript in North India with Hare Krishna first. And then it's sometimes said, why did he put Hare Krishna first instead of Hare Rama? And there are different ideas for that also, that he wanted, because it's in the Upanishads, therefore it's a Vedic mantra, and Shudras are not supposed to chant Vedic mantras, so by making Hare Krishna first, he made it a nama, open to everyone, and not a mantra. There are various subtle speculations about so many things. Putting Krishna first, emphasizing Krishna first. When Śrila Prabhupada was asked about this, he said, well, if you chant continuously, it all comes to the same thing anyway. And in the Gauriya Mat, I believe that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur introduced this, because I don't know anywhere else except the Gauriya Mat where they chant. The lead singer sings Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Then everyone else follows Hare Krishna, and then he sings the Hare Ram, and they split it in two. And if you do like that, where's the beginning and where's the end?
Mara.
Mara. Well, that's another interesting thing which Srila Prabhupada quoted, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he didn't accept that story. Because it said in Sanskrit, it's grammatically wrong that you say Mara. It's a different ra. That it comes out Rama. So if you get into these things, you go crazy. But someone should do it. Someone should do all these things. So anyway, as Maharaj said, Śrila Prabhupada gave us chanting of Hare Krishna, and we don't seem to be doing too bad on it, so let's continue. The mercy of Caitanya Mahaprabhu is there. Shall I go on? I have a question. It's been given to me, but I can open it up to both of you also. Do I remember all of my disciples? If yes, how? Do you have some memory book? Are you satisfied with your disciples? Do I remember all my disciples? No. Do I remember all of my disciples all of the time? No. Prabha Vishnu, I always call him Prabha Vishnu Swami because I spent so many years serving under him, and even now it's difficult for me to think of him as anything else. But he told me several times that Srila Prabhupada saw him in London, and 3 times Srila Prabhupada asked devotees who he personally knew in London, who is that boy? He was already initiated. 3 times he asked. And then eventually Srila Prabhupada got to personally know him, especially when Prabhupada Vishnu was made the Tamil president in Bombay and Srila Prabhupada was there. So, do I remember all the disciples? No, not exactly directly. In this regard, there are many things that could be said. Srila Prabhupada also said that he loves all his disciples equally, but if someone comes forward for service and does some significant service, then he's recognized. Then what is the meaning of being a disciple? That's the obvious question that arises from that, doesn't it? Another thing I should say in this regard is that Srila Prabhupada said that all his sannyasis should have more disciples than him, write more books than him, and open more temples than him. All my disciples should initiate 10,000 more disciples. How many can you personally remember? Do I have some memory book? Srila Prabhupada had the names of his disciples entered in a book, and I try to keep a database. That's the modern thing. Keep it in a database. Do I personally remember them? No. Then how does it work? My understanding of this is that, as stated in Caitanya Caritamrta, that Chaitya Guru is Paramatma within the heart. And it's stated that Chaitya Guru manifests externally as the Guru, the external manifestation of the Supersoul, who states what Krishna states. That's the qualification of a Guru. And everything is orchestrated by Paramatma. And I have several experiences, and I know my godbrothers who are initiating, and some who are not initiating also, have many experiences of devotees being instructed by myself in dreams, which I'm not aware of. Paramatma is organizing that. Actually, we put a lot of emphasis on dreams, but the Guru is present. You can personally ask him, but sometimes it happens like that also. So it's a mysterious tattva, what's going on. Srila Jiva Goswami also says that these two, Shiva tattva and Guru tattva, are very difficult to understand because they're both different. Lord Shiva and the Guru are both different and non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's understood as a philosophical principle, that Krishna acts through the person of the Guru. Guru Rupe Krishna Karen, Krishna Kripa Karen Bhakta Gone. The mercy of Krishna is transmitted through the Guru. Exactly how that works, Krishna is orchestrating everything. So there are a few thoughts on that. Am I satisfied with my disciples? No. You're all rascals. Guru's duty is to chastise the disciples. Śrila Prabhupada said, even if they don't do anything wrong, you should still chastise them. I find that that's a great fault of myself, actually. I don't chastise my disciples enough. Sorry. But apart from that, I am satisfied with many of them, and some not. It's individual, it's not blanket. Either of you would like to say something more about that? It's a commonly asked question, that how does, my Guru doesn't even know me, what's the meaning of being a disciple? That's the implied thought.
Well, as Prabhupada said, now I saw Prabhupada, I can't even count the number of times I was with Prabhupada.
I didn't. I'll just say one more thing. When I joined the movement, I didn't join in 1969. You joined in 68, was it? 68. I joined in 75. There was a lot of difference between ISKCON 68 and 75. There's so many more disciples, and there was no question of me walking up to Prabhupada and talking to him, even when he came. It was just out of the question. Whereas with you, it was everyone interacted.
Not everyone, I mean somewhat. I remember
some more than others, presumably.
I mean,
Yeah.
Prabhupada walked up to me one time and asked me how I was doing. So it was, yeah, it was a little bit, but I don't even know, I was with Prabhupada, sometimes alone for a long time, and Prabhupada would talk to me. I don't even know if he never called me by my name, I don't remember. And I was with darshans with him and spoke to him morning walks. I don't even know if he actually knew my name, except for the fact that he wrote me a number of letters. And every letter he wrote to me, he told me exactly what I had to hear. So, from what my understanding...
Oh, that's another point. Often giving a general lecture and the devotee says, you were talking directly to me. I wasn't thinking like that, but yeah, Krishna arranges.
So, from my understanding is that, as Prabhupada said, that Krishna tells me exactly what I have to know. It's not that Krishna has to tell him everything. Krishna told him exactly what he had to know.
When you say that, that means that Śrila Prabhupada told Śrila Prabhupada what he had to know? Or
No, Krishna told Prabhupada what he had to know. The Super Soul.
What he had to say to the disciple.
Yeah, I mean, whatever he had to know in his service, because he was an instrument for the Super Soul. He was actually a manifestation of the Super Soul. Krishna manifested what was necessary. He didn't have to tell him everything about the person. He had to tell him what was necessary. So how it works, I don't know, but all I know is that I don't remember in all those interchanges I had with Prabhupada, Prabhupada ever called me by my name. He must have called me something, but I can't remember what it was. But still, I know when he wrote me letters, because he had my name there. He knew exactly who I was and what I was doing, and what to tell me. And even now, they had the instructions he gave me, either in darshan or by letter, is exactly what I had to know there then and what I have to know now too. I remember one time I was there, I was sitting with Prabhupada, and he was talking to me for a long time. I was getting a little bored. I was a new devotee, and before I joined the movement, I was a little bit into mystic yoga. I used to sit there in the outside in the student union. I used to think I was dissolving clouds or something by my mystic power. So I was sitting there and I was trying, and Prabhupada was talking to me for a long time, and I was kind of like getting a little bit into my mystic power thing. So I started to try to see Prabhupada's aura. And immediately he turned to me, he said, "Our process is bhakti, it's not mystic yoga." So I knew he knew exactly, he was quite clear what was happening. I mean, Prabhupada knew exactly. Like one time I was in Boston in 1969, Śrila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada's disappearance day. And they had just gotten a new temple in Boston on Beacon Street. And it was a big temple because it had 2 floors. It was like unbelievable. And some of the devotees were upstairs doing kirtan, Bhajan, waiting for Prabhupada to come, and someone went to the airport. And Prabhupada was, and they had the deities there. Actually, Rukmini Devi Dasi, who's now Anuttama Prabhu's wife, she was the head pujari then, back then. And they were having we were doing Bhajan, and Prabhupada walked up the steps. And before he walked up, I saw Caitanya Mahaprabhu there's still the picture there in the Boston Temple, with his arms out like this, and the kirtan parties in the back. And he started to glow. I was looking, and then Prabhupada walked up, and the whole temple turned into Vaikuntha. And I was in anxiety. I couldn't remember what I was in anxiety about when Prabhupada walked up, because I was in Vaikuntha. I was in the spiritual world. And then Prabhupada sat down on the Vyasa sign and took a look at me. And I could see, he could actually see who I actually am. And he took a look at me. I don't know who I am, but he knew who I was in. So I'm sure Prabhupada knows everyone as they actually are. He may not know their names, but he can see actually who they really are. So I have complete faith that Prabhupada knew exactly what he had to know.
Many devotees have that experience, including myself, that Prabhupada just looks at you and he knows everything and you feel ashamed. Many devotees report that. There's a similar anecdote to our process is bhakti, not mystic yoga. I believe it was Narayana, who said that he's Śrila Prabhupada, this early days of the movement, and Swamiji was chanting in the park. And Narayana, either he hadn't joined at that time or he was just new. And he said he used to have this practice that he would look at people from behind, and by the power of his mind, he would make them turn around and look at him. And he was trying it on Prabhupada, and he was trying and trying and trying, and Prabhupada was chanting, and he didn't look. He didn't turn around. And then he gave up. And then Prabhupada turned around and looked at him right in the eyes. Saying about the Guru being non-different from Krishna, one thing very important for us to understand is that we all here in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness have our gurus, but Śrila Prabhupada's position is central and very important, and we should all recognize that. It's sometimes thought that all the gurus have to be on the level of Prabhupada, otherwise they're bogus, but that's not the philosophy. The philosophy is that one should be a faithful follower, and then the mercy flows through. Śrila Prabhupada is very special. Every guru is very special. Everyone who chants Hare Krishna is very special. Want to say something, Maharaj, about that?
Hare Krishna. Well, no, yes, Prabhupada is special. He is the founder Acharya. And this, what my good brothers here have said about Prabhupada appearing in the dream. He appeared in the dreams and things like that. I didn't have so much direct contact. But the first time after Prabhupada left, and then I had a dream of Prabhupada. And then I was saying, "Oh, Prabhupada, I thought you had left." Meaning, I was surprised at the feeling. There was such a feeling that he was present there. In any case, also Paramatma, how is the whole thing managed? How is the whole thing working? And I fully agree or can identify with what Maharaj has said here. It's someone is there and helping it to get in place in the proper way. So also it brings us together here in a wonderful way.
We have to be a little careful also. The main thing is to understand Śrila Prabhupada's teachings, Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, and follow them, and not be too much looking out for mystical experiences. I'll cite an anecdote in this regard. A few years ago, one woman devotee who was new in Krishna consciousness was in contact with me, and then she wrote a letter at some point and said that, "You see, I'm quite old now, I'm not very good looking, no one will marry me, and what do you think I should do? How can I serve Krishna?" And I wrote back and said, "Well, you could dedicate your life for book distribution, distributing Śrila Prabhupada's books." She didn't like that suggestion at all. And she wrote back and said, "I went before Prabhupada, the deity of Prabhupada, and I cried. And he told me, you should kick him," referring to me, "on the head." But that doesn't fit Śrila Prabhupada, because Śrila Prabhupada wanted his books to be distributed, but it fitted with what she thought Prabhupada would have said. So we have to be a little careful with all these mystic experiences. Which is one reason why we need a guru.
One time, Vishnujana Maharaj went to Prabhupada and said, "Prabhupada, whenever I start chanting, I see all these lights and all these colors." So Prabhupada said, "Keep on chanting and it'll go away."
It's unimaginable what Prabhupada did coming to the West. Even now, I'm a complete Mlecha background, but I've spent some time in India, I have little appreciation. And Prabhupada is a pure devotee from the spiritual world, raised in a pure devotee family. He went to the West, and what he did, there were no devotees. No one knew anything, and he had to tolerate so many. It's just unimaginable what he did. No one No one could have done what Srila Prabhupada did. Who would have the tolerance, the patience, that we can use these words, but we just got, it's immeasurable.
As it says in history, when Prabhupada was in Haight-Ashbury, and because Bhakti Vikasa Maharaja was talking about how we should wear proper clothes.
Oh dear. Because I know what's coming.
So during the kirtan in the temple, one lady took off all her clothes and was dancing. And Prabhupada turned to the guy, I think Malati, and said, she has to wear something. So they took her in the back and they gave her a sari to
Just another day in Haight-Ashbury. As we're telling Prabhupada stories. I remember once I was somewhere, was it Portland or somewhere in Oregon State or something, that someone asked you to tell about your memories of Prabhupada, and I was very impressed by your reply. He said, Prabhupada always taught us to follow his, to discuss his instructions, but now we're talking anecdotes. That I thought you were going to talk about Śrila Prabhupada going to the Morning Star Ranch.
Oh, that's
where it's a nudist colony. So one of the people he came, they were all completely naked, and then he met one of the people and said, Prabhupada, he went to the nudist colony because he'd heard they're chanting Hare Krishna and they're interested in Krishna. Can you imagine going to a nudist colony?
It was actually it was a ranch run by a spiritualist, and many of the people went up there were just they were hippies looking for spiritual life. It wasn't a nudist. Not all of them.
Oh, not all of them went in the
No,
nude.
not all.
Only some of them.
Only some. The ones who joined the movement were generally stark naked.
Well, Tamal Krishna Maharaj came out of there. Vishnu Jan Maharaj came out of there.
Hari, what was his name? Sri Hari.
I don't know.
There was, I forget his name now. Hari something. He was the one who met Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, what do you do?
Haridas.
Maybe it was Haridas, yeah.
He was from New York. The one Hari. Anyway,
No, it was
whatever.
a
Different one.
Bhajahari.
Bhajahari was from Wales.
No,
He was the first two-term president in London. Bhaktivedanta.
It was a Hari something.
So Hari.
He came up to Prabhupada naked after the talk and the kirtan. Well, actually, Prabhupada went out to the field and he was plowing potatoes. And Prabhupada walked up to him. He was naked and he said, "What are you doing with your life?"
No, I was going to tell that, but I heard that I was going to tell it that Prabhupada said to him, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm digging up the potato." And he said, "No, what are you doing with your life?" Tamal Krishna Maharaj came out of that visit. Vishnu Jan Maharaj, and Sridhar Maharaj was there. Really? But he came sometime later, didn't he? Quite early. He joined in Canada, didn't he? Whatever. But anyway, these are. We are sitting here today, and I rightly gave all credit to Śrila Prabhupada, but those early devotees, what they did and how they assisted Prabhupada and how they were empowered by Śrila Prabhupada. We also wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Great personalities. Yeah, and those Tamal Krishna Maharaj was not the most popular among everyone, but the service he did is there's no comparison. Okay, shall we go on? Oh, it's your turn now, right? Isn't it?
How can we know if we have surrendered to Lord Krishna?
Okay. Well, can we can we know when we fully have surrendered to Krishna? I mean, that's who I can't judge that myself, but that's in a way Krishna and Prabhupada or Guru, who and then when he's when he's fully surrendered, I mean. But there is maybe that with the Paramatma in the heart, Krishna in the heart, may give a sense of satisfaction, bliss, or when we've done something. When we've done something nice, generally, okay, then there's a certain feeling of maybe a reciprocation of that it feels. We can feel there is a satisfaction. Yeah, take that in inner. There's the inner level, and then of course, then it's outside. And I didn't exactly have the experience of Prabhupada directly like that, but with his representative, the GBC. And sometimes, one or twice time, I did something, and I know that the GBC liked it. But that was like Prabhupada liked it also, and there was, a nice experience in my spiritual life. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Do you want to say something more about that?
Well, I have no definitive answer, but what Prabhupada once wrote to me, he said, as I've said many times, I sent Prabhupada some Lakshmi for his book fund, as I usually did, and I asked him some questions. And Prabhupada wrote me back this fairly long letter about preaching. I had asked him actually, how does bhava turn into prema? This is 1969. And what had happened is that my temple president had a book. We were a very small temple. We only had like 5 devotees in the temple, which was like a pretty large temple back then. And all we had is the blue Bhagavad Gita at that time. We got that later. And then we had the 3 Prabhupada's original books. So he had one book it was called the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And and he told me I couldn't read it, so that was the one book I wanted to read. So when everyone went to sleep at night, I'd get up and I'd go into that room and start reading the book. And I found it quite interesting. And then I wrote to Prabhupada one time, how does bhava turn into prema? So Prabhupada wrote me about this letter about preaching, how we should go out and distribute Bhagavad Gitas. I heard you're distributing Bhagavad Gitas in Buffalo, and you're distributing Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Godheads very nicely. I can just recite the letter quickly. He said that that in San Francisco we just had a Rath Yatra, and the boys and girls 10,000 boys and girls were dancing and chanting in full spiritual ecstasy. That the boys and girls in your country are very good souls. That's why they've taken birth in such a nice country, and they should complete the good qualities by becoming Krishna conscious. And I've heard in Buffalo that you've distributed. I heard in New York that in just 2 weeks they've distributed 3,000 copies of Back to Godhead, and that in Buffalo you're also distributing Back to Godhead very nicely. So please continue in this way, and your success in life is assured. That the more you work seriously to help bring his other children back to the spiritual kingdom, then the more Krishna will bestow all his blessings upon you. That Krishna is never ungrateful for our efforts to serve him. Rest assured. And then at the end, Prabhupada said, you said that you enclosed $50 in my book fund, but I don't find any $50. He said, as far as your question, how does bhava turn into prema? He said, there's no need to trouble yourself over such advanced topics at the present time. He said, shortly my book, Nectar of Devotion, will come out, and you can read about it there. So I think the idea, that instruction is for everyone. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to bring everyone back to Godhead. He's told us, whoever we meet, we should try to help them become Krishna conscious. And if we do that, then Krishna will didami buddhi yogam tam. He'll give us the intelligence how to do that and become Krishna conscious ourselves. The more we work seriously to bring his other children back to the spiritual kingdom, then he'll give us all his blessings. That we can see by Prabhupada and our Acharya's examples. And if we do that, then we'll get the blessings too. It's open for everyone.
I'll add something. Maharaj, Smita Krishna Maharaja had said that if you feel some satisfaction, that's reciprocation from the Super Soul. There is a verse in the Bhagavatam in this regard, which specifically had this word, prapadyamanasya, of one who has surrendered. It specifically states this. So I'll recite that verse as one of their side. Memorized. Bhakti parishanubhavo viraktiranyatra chaisha trikakala prapadyamanasya yatashnatasyus tushti pushti kshuddhapayo nughasam, which defines bhakti as experience of the Supreme Lord and detachment from everything else. And that one can, for one who has surrendered, he experiences his advancement gradually. And the example is given just like eating. With every bite, one feels satisfaction, nourishment, and hunger, dissipation of hunger. So it's experienced by the grace of Krishna. And we have, of course, pratyakshavagaman dharmyam susukam kartamavyayam, that we experience happiness. It's practically experienced.
One time in a morning walk, the devotees asked Prabhupada, how do we know that Krishna is God? And Prabhupada said, by the and he said there, someone said, by the happiness that you experience when you chant Hare Krishna. Prabhupada said, no, it's because our acharyas tell us, because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then in another morning walk, the devotee, Prabhupada asked another group of devotees, how do you know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And the devotee said, because the acharyas said. And Prabhupada said, no, because of the happiness you experience.
How are we to understand this?
Different place, different audience, different time, place, and audience. What they had to hear.
If you or I were to do that, we'd be taken to pieces in the Back to Godhead. Back to Prabhupada magazine.
It's confirm what they already said. They simply use it as example. They don't have to wait for us to say anything like that. Back to Prabhupada, that magazine.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have to wait for us to make a mistake like that. They already have all kinds of things to tell us.
Shall we go on? Many questions. Good.
So another question is, how can one cultivate compassion for those saying they need help in their devotional life, but seemingly are not taking up the opportunities before them to do so?
Say that again, I wasn't listening.
How can one cultivate compassion for those saying they need help in their devotional life, but seemingly are not taking up the opportunities before them to do so?
Well, as Prabhupada once told one devotee, the devotee was saying, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. And Prabhupada said, you're not the most anything. And then another said, Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. And Prabhupada said, if you're actually the most fallen, then why don't you do something about it? So, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through submission, service, and inquiry. So not everyone is interested in actually following the process as it is. And therefore, there's such a thing as preaching to the faithless. So we should be careful that we give people what they want to know, what they actually genuinely want to know that they could actually put into practice. Otherwise, it's not very useful to give people instructions that they're not going to follow. As one devotee said, I was there, Prabhupada was giving a class one time. He was in Buffalo. And one student Prabhupada gave a class at the university. And the student stood up and asked Prabhupada at that time, Swamiji. He said, Swamiji, are you actually really happy? And Prabhupada looked at him very gravely and said, if I told you, would you believe me? And then the boy had a big smile on his face, a kind of smirk. He said, no, come on, Swamiji, tell us, are you really happy? And Prabhupada got really grave and said, if I told you, would you believe me? And he, oh, come on, Swamiji, just tell us, are you really happy? And then Prabhupada looked at him with this big smile on his face and said, yes, I'm really happy. And everyone goes, Jai Prabhupada, and this big smirk on this student's face went, woo, and he sat down. So Prabhupada he didn't always tell people, just because they asked something, he didn't necessarily tell them exactly what they wanted to know. He wanted to find out if they're actually serious many times. Prabhupada answered questions expertly, according to the person who was actually asking the question. So they actually got the answer that they needed, not necessarily the answer that they expected.
Hey, my turn. There are some related questions here about sacrifices. Okay, I'll read one of them. We know from the story about Jada Bharata that Shaktas used to perform human sacrifice, which is not too surprising. However, in the 9th canto, we learn that Harishcandra performed a Purusha-medha yajna, in which he sacrificed Shunashepa instead of his son Rohit. In all probability, this type of yajna was performed very rarely, but still it is difficult to understand how Lord Vishnu, the enjoyer of all yajnas, can be pleased with such a sacrifice. How should we understand this unpleasant practice? Yeah, and there were big rishis like Vashishta, they were all taking part in the sacrifice. And we don't find that the acharyas commented on this very much. They just went through it like, okay, that's what it says, and they went on with it.
What was his name? Sinarpa?
Shunashepa.
He wasn't sacrificed for that.
I don't remember the story exactly. One of them, he was supposed to be sacrificed, but he went away and then he did austerity and went back to Godhead.
What was that? Anusman? What would happen later on if you keep on reading the Bhagavatam? You'll find out that Shunashepa prayed to the demigods, and Indra came and he got freed from being sacrificed.
Yeah, but then another one was sacrificed in his stead.
No. Originally he was going. There was the son was paid. Varuna gave this king this blessing, his father the blessing, that he wanted. I forget what he wanted, but anyhow he said yes. I'll give you. Oh, he wanted a son, so Varuna gave him the blessing. He would get a son. And he said, well, as soon as I get a son, I'll sacrifice a son for you.
Abraham, all over again.
And he said, well, you got the son, why don't you sacrifice? When the teeth grow in, then I'll sacrifice him. When he's pure, when the teeth grow in. And then the teeth grew in, and he said, well, he'll be pure when the teeth fall out. Then you can sacrifice, then I'll sacrifice him. So the teeth fell out, the baby teeth. And then he said, well, now is the time. Varuna came to him and said, now is the time for the sacrifice. He said, no, I'll wait until the teeth grow in again, then he'll be suitable for sacrifice. So the teeth grew in, and he said, all right, Varuna came, he said, now make the sacrifice. He said, no, when he grows up and becomes a warrior and can carry a sword, then he'll be sacrificed. So then he grew up and carried his sword, and he found out he was going to be sacrificed, and he went into the forest to escape getting sacrificed. So Varuna came and gave this king, I forget the king's name, he gave him dropsy. So then he was suffering from dropsy. So then his son came back, and he got this, he bought from this other personality, his son, to be sacrificed. But then later on, then it stops there and it goes on with the kings. But then later on in the Śrimad Bhagavatam, in the same canto, in the 9th canto, it explains that this Shunashepa prayed to the demigods for protection, and the demigods gave him protection, and therefore he got freed, and he got knowledge from, I think it was Vishwamrita Muni, gave him full knowledge and became a great devotee. So, but anyhow, it was a practice. I mean, someone got sacrificed sometimes, obviously. How it went on, all we can say is that when the cows and the bulls got sacrificed, or the horses and Ashmeda or the Gomeda sacrificed, they were given new life, and sometimes they were even elevated to the human form of life immediately. But generally they had old cows, old horses sacrificed, and they were given a rejuvenated body. So when great sages such as Vishwamrita Muni and Vashishta Muni who take part in the sacrifice, then the person who's sacrificed is not lost. He actually gets a better body, either immediately or in the next lifetime.
But still, it's the kind of thing that enemies of Vedic culture will pick up on. That's one of the many actually, if you study different shastras and so many things, so many questions will arise. It's a very complex culture and a completely different basis to that which we're used to. So that's one of the things that was in my mind for some time to make more research about that. What do different scholars say about this? So whoever asked this question, please send me an email and I'll get that researched, see if there's anything more to what they say about this. There are still Vedic scholars in the world today, and they may have some more commentary from the different acharyas and this and that.
They condemned so many civilizations because they had the same element of human sacrifice. Like in South America, in the Aztecs, they
Incas,
had they had the human sacrifice, and therefore they're condemned as a barbaric civilization. So if anyone actually bothered to read our books and found out about these things.
Well, it's surprising that it hasn't been taken up yet, actually. And people may ask us, do you want to reinstitute this?
No, first we send all the ladies to the forest. Then that's on our list, but that comes later. No, sometimes, as the Prabhupada was here, they said, what do you want to do with all these ladies? They said all the ladies are disturbing us. Well, why don't you send them all to the forest? I mean,
I see. Prabhupada, sarcastic.
Yeah. So they accuse us of so many different things, that you mistreat the women. Women are inferior. Now is another thing is that you're sacrificing human beings. There's so many things you can find out in our books. Or Prabhupada said this or that about this or that. He was in favor of Hitler or something. You can find some quote. And now you can find out in our literature, in our Vedic civilization, the topmost civilization, they were sacrificing human beings to the gods. What kind of barbaric culture is this?
Yeah, but it is something that deserves a more complete reply. So, for the satisfaction of enemies of Vedic culture will never be satisfied, but unpleasant practice, it's stated here. Yeah, it's not very pleasant. Doesn't seem very pleasant. Shunashev didn't want to become a sacrificial animal. So yeah, please write me an email and I'll look into that. It means I'll have someone else look into it. I have the luxury nowadays of doing that. One thing in South America, those cultures, it seems that no one, it was just accepted that it happens, right? It was just accepted. And if you defeat another party in battle, then that's what happens. In Thailand, they used to do. They used to make Buddhist temples, and they would put in the walls living human beings, so they just die there within the walls, and then they would protect the temple. That's the idea. The ghosts. There are many, many interesting things which are not directly related to chanting Hare Krishna and going back to Godhead, which we could investigate.
Well, it was common practice, according to even Śrimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. Jarasandha captured, I think, 12,000.
Yeah, he was going to sacrifice them to Bhairav, but then that's again the Shaktas, right? Well, that's the Shaiva. Shaiva he was going to sacrifice. Kala Bhairav is the form of Shiva to whom sacrifices are made, and at that time human sacrifices also. But that's not for high class. It's within the Vedic culture, but it's demoniac. Not everything in the Vedic culture is godly. I'll just share something because it's, if you don't mind, as we turn back, something came to my attention. I was in Canterbury, which was, it is still, there's a cathedral there. It's in southeast England, and cathedral going back, the original structure, maybe more than 1,000 years, like this. So the place where I was staying, the landlady gave me some books, 2 books about Canterbury Cathedral, and one of them is about the miracles that used to take place there. I didn't have much time, but I just read one of them. And it was some nobleman, Sir something or other, going back before the Enlightenment, when people believed in demons and things like this. So there was this Sir something or other who could not sleep properly for 40 years because whenever he went to sleep, different demons would attack him, and he had to have servants come and pull his hair to yank him awake. He was so troubled by this for years and years, and then eventually he prayed to God. He was praying to God, nothing happened. Then he prayed to the saints of Canterbury, because there are so many saints. And then he specifically mentioned the name of Thomas à Becket, who was, that's another whole story. He was murdered by Henry II because Thomas à Becket. Now we can talk, there's so many interesting things. But anyway, Thomas à Becket was a saint, and when he prayed to this, he specifically mentioned the name of Thomas à Becket, then all the demons who were harassing him went away forever. He never had that problem again, and it's come out. Now this raises many interesting questions. One thing, nowadays we don't believe in demons, and we don't believe in miracles, but there was a record at Canterbury Cathedral even of almost 250 miracles performed in the name of Thomas à Becket, even though Henry VIII, who later murdered Sir Thomas More, who is sometimes thought to be, they're both thought to be reincarnations of Thomas à Becket. And because Thomas à Becket was killed in very similar circumstances by Henry II, as Thomas More was killed by Henry VIII, the infamous Henry VIII. So Henry VIII stopped all that. He didn't want all this believing in Thomas a Becket, and it was all stuff. But there were so many miracles took place. We don't believe in miracles, and maybe that's one reason they don't work anymore, because we don't believe in them. Another very interesting thing about this, I'm pretty sure Thomas a Becket wasn't a vegetarian, right? But he's a saint. On some mystic potency is funneling through this. So there are many, many, many interesting things which we could investigate and this and that. That's specialist work. For us, we chant Hare Krishna and distribute books and go on Harinam, but many, many things. People are interested in these things. If we can provide good answers, as Sadaputa, he was polymathic. He had interest in ancient cultures and UFOs, and he got deeply into all different fields, and he was giving good answers from the Vedic version. So actually, if we get deeply into understanding this culture, then we can provide answers to so many unsolved mysteries. But it's not just doesn't happen like that. You have to. A lot of research has to be, even about these miracles. Someone had come there and spent years investigating, and there's no literature in England about all these miracles because Henry VIII had it all destroyed. So she found it out in France and other places, from different places, and it's in old Latin and getting it translated. There's a lot of work to do in the field of scholarship. A lot of work. So human sacrifice, yeah, I thought about that. Mm-hmm. To be investigated further. We have, according to my watch, we have less than 6 minutes left. Not much time for any more questions. Maharaj, sorry, we didn't give you much time to talk. Give us your Ashirvani, your blessed instructions.
Had a question. Why? Sanyasis asir. Let's see here. Nirasir nirmakshaya kriya. A sannyasi should not offer us any blessings or obeisances. That's from the Smriti.
Sannyasis should not give blessings or obeisances?
Yeah, I thought it says in this. Sannyas Smriti, okay. Well,
you have to see the original Sanskrit, what it says, is one thing. Another thing, it's from it may say Vairagi, which Śrila Prabhupada often translates as sannyasi, but it's actually a much broader term. And it's often understood to mean what we would say Babaji. But also many of the Smritis, they're not for Vaishnavas, they're for Smartas, and then the Mayavadis who are just wandering around imagining that they're Brahman. They don't have anything to do with this world. They don't offer obeisances, they don't give blessings, they're just completely detached from the world. But the Vaishnava's blessing, the Vaishnava Sannyasis' blessings is Krishna matirastu. May your mind be attracted to Krishna. So that may be, but it's not that everything in Shastra is applicable to everyone. And even things may be applicable in some times and places and some circumstances and not others. And some things may be applicable at one time of life and not in another. Just like I was saying, a young man, you encourage him to marry and be a responsible grihastha. And when he's older, you may encourage him to, now is the time to leave home. 20 years old earlier, if you told him to leave, no, you shouldn't tell him to leave home. So it requires some proper understanding of all these things. Otherwise, you just take quotes here and there. That's what these, what's that Muslim doctor, Zakir Naik, he takes a quote from here and there and used it to criticize In the Vedas it says, he used the word putul, you shouldn't worship a statue, and he says that means deity worship. What is the word pratima? But the word pratima is never used for a deity, it's used for a statue. So yes, you shouldn't worship a statue. So, Hare Krishna, so
Hare
many
Krishna.
things.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, that's right. That's the answer to all the questions. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Rama, Rama.
Okay, so that's kind of done. And you can keep these. Keep that separately. So now, Gaurangera Rotik Shobha, Jaga Jana Mana Lobha. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kipa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.